A century ago, Regin was a huntress who beat the infamous vampire Vlad Dracula and became his master. He promised to never drink human blood again and remained loyal at her side till the day she disappeared. Regin's great-granddaughter named Tun Bailyu appears in London 100 years later and comes across Vlad, who immediately falls for her. Several people start to hunt Tun due to her special powers, and Vlad along with a handsome hunk of boys vow to protect her. However, before any of this, two girls arrive at the city, and one of them named Tun changes into her uniform at the airport while the other friend named Shinya searches for a way to reach their destination. Tun comes out and declares that they are both finally free, so Shinya reminds her that it was always her dream to come here. They both head to their new apartment through the train, and Shinya explains to her that they will register for school the next day and buy all the necessities. Tun continues to look out at the city London, which was her great-grandmother's favorite city, and thanks Shinya for pushing her to come to London. Shinya reminds her that it was her dream to come here, due to which she made all the effort to come with her for her sake, and that she really treasures her as a friend. They leave the train and Tun starts fangirling over the architecture and the buildings like a typical nerd. Shinya points in the direction of their apartment and Tun takes their luggage from her. They both head towards their apartment while a shadow-looking creature follows them. They walk for quite a while and Tun starts complaining about being hungry. Suddenly the shadow creature lunges at them and runs away with all their luggage. The girls become shocked to find that their luggage has been stolen, and Tun discovers that her grandmother's keepsake, which was a ring around her neck, has also been stolen. She spots a shadow turning around the street, so she runs after him, even though Shinya insists that they should call police to deal with such matters. Tun runs after the shadow through the streams of people and wonders why no one is doing anything to help her. At a distance, a man finishes up his deal in a Chinese restaurant when a shadow runs into him and then runs past him. The man manages to catch a hold of the keepsake and sees the girl running after the shadow, which makes him feel nostalgic. Tun ends up in a dark alleyway and finally realizes that she has lost Shinya as well as the shadow. She draws a spell in her diary and rips out the paper to make a paper plane. She then throws the paper plane in the air and runs where the paper plane leads her. The plane falls midway a few times and she throws it in the air a couple of times. One time the plane enters a cafe and she follows its course to enter the cafe. She even goes to the back side and then runs into a guy named Vlad who demands to know who she is. The staff room had a special entrance which would have stopped her from entering, so he asks her how she was able to enter. She explains that a magical spell led her inside, and he suddenly grabs her face to announce that Regin is alive. Another hot guy named Luke smacks him from behind and tells him to make up his mind whether he wants to investigate or seduce her. Another waiter named Toryu tells her that they have been waiting for the descendant of Regin to come. They boys close the cafe early and Tun formally introduces herself to the boys as they serve tea to her. She wonders how the boys know her great-grandmother Regin since she died 100 years ago, and Vlad starts talking about how he couldn't protect Regin, but Luke shuts him up. Luke tells her that Regin is actually the owner of the Cafe Forbidden where they work at, and shows her a picture in which Regin is standing in front of the cafe decades ago, making her believe that the magical spell deliberately led her to the cafe. Luke then introduces all of the boys to her one by one, and she tells him how she was robbed after arriving in London and got separated from her friend. He asks her to give him details about the thief, and she reveals that the thief was very blurry and fuzzy. She thinks that they must be very confused after hearing her explanation, but Luke assures her that he knows who she is talking about. The boys change into different clothes and she tells them that she saw the thief around Chinatown, so they start discussing how goblins usually fill the area around this time every year. They discuss that usually goblins reside in outdoorsy areas where they collect their treasure, and conclude that their thief might be at the Hyde Park, which is near the Chinatown. The boys rush out of the cafe and assure her that there is one more of them who will take care of the cafe. Tun runs after them but finds that they are all gone, so she takes a taxi and heads to Hyde Park herself. She arrives at the huge park and comes across a man from earlier whom the goblin had run into. The man guides her in the direction where he saw the three men and gives her grandmother's keepsake to her. He lies to her that the necklace slipped from her pocket and asks her to wear the ring on the necklace so that she doesn't lose it the next time. She puts on the ring on her finger and then heads into the woods to look for the boys. She finds all of them stationed in front of a huge tree where they demand the goblin to step out from their den. They don't receive an answer, so Vlad pushes open their den, which reveals tons of stuff inside. He also exposes a goblin inside and asks him to step out to receive a painless death. Toryu notices that the goblin cannot understand him, which means that he must be new, and more goblins show up beside him. The boys discuss that there must be more goblins nearby, and Vlad tells them to handle the ones in front of him. He disappears from sight and Luke then transforms into a half-wolf. He tackles the goblins and Toryu takes out a machine gun to take them on. They both continue to attack and take down goblins. At the same time, Vlad spots another goblin den and a guardian of the treasure called Spriggan shows up to defeat him. Tun spots the monster behind Vlad and warns him to run away. He gets distracted by her voice and the monster attacks him, which hurts him a little. The monster approaches her next and she tells Vlad to run away while she will distract him. The other boys also arrive behind her and Vlad tells her to run away first because he can handle the monster. Her ring releases a bunch of chains which shocks the boys around him and Vlad tells her to use the chains to protect herself. She struggles to control the chains but ends up throwing them at the monster, which restrains him for a second. Vlad then strikes the monster down and the boys find her luggage in the monster's den. Vlad then stares into her eyes and makes her forget everything that happened with the monsters. Later she wakes up on the park bench and recalls that the thieves were caught by the police. She calls Shinya to let her know everything, and on the other hand the boys wonder whether they did the right thing. Vlad tells them that Region would never have wanted Tun to get involved with them Twilights, and they all agree with him. Vlad watches the TV in which they discuss the increasing number of missing people and Luke notices that he seems lost in thought. He teases him that he must be thinking about Tun and Vlad replies that they just resolved the incident a few hours ago. He then starts to change his clothes in front of them and declares that he is going to sleep. They also begin to head out, but just then, Tun barges inside and runs into Vlad. She declares that there is an emergency and that her friend Shinya has been kidnapped. Luke and Toryu head to the site and confirm via call that they will look into the kidnapping. Tun thinks that she should help in the search and tries to walk out of the mirror entrance but gets blocked. Vlad explains to her that the mirror has a lot of enchantments which she doesn't know about yet and asks her to let the other boys handle the case. He then asks her why she remembers them and she recalls how he put his face close to her face the other night. He thinks that the shock from her friend's kidnapping may have caused her to remember something, or maybe Regent's blood is resistant towards his powers. She realizes that he tried to tamper with her memories, but when she tries to talk about it, Vlad just dodges all her questions. Luke and Toryu use one of their connections called Detective Gregory to get into Shinya's apartment, and they discuss how someone took Shinya and jumped out from the 4th floor. Gregory doesn't think that the kidnapper is a human and finds it strange that a shadow kidnapped a foreign student in the middle of the day. The boys then contact Vlad and Tun and discuss that the kidnapper is not a goblin or a Spriggan since they aren't smart enough to pull a kidnapping off. Tun hears another voice in the phone telling her that the enemies must be after Tun herself because of her great-grandmother's identity, but before he can add more details, Vlad shuts the call and refuses to explain anything. The same voice appears on the radio and tells Tun that he is the cafe's ghost called Wayne. Vlad then explains to her that there are non-human entities in the world called shadows who have been created by the fear and anxieties of the humans. He explains that Luke is a lone werewolf who has separated from his pack, while Toryu is a jiangshi from the Chinese tradition who came to London with Regent. Wayne is a ghost who doesn't have precise memories and existence and who was picked up by Vlad 6 months ago from the consciousness of a doll. Tun then receives a call from Shinya's phone telling her that something may have happened to her and asking her to confirm Shinya's location quickly. At the Chinatown, the SUS guy named Hasin is eating food by himself when his minion Chris arrives and notices that Hasin is gobbling down tons of food by himself. Hasin comments that he needs a lot of food to maintain his body, and Chris informs him that he has delivered the package to the designated location. He declares that it's the last disgusting job that he is ever doing for him and reminds Hasin that his organization's job is to help humans and not kidnap them. Hasin explains to him that he plans to use the bait to awaken Regent's blood relative's powers. At another place, Shinya wakes up and wonders who she is. A mannequin-like figure approaches her and then nicks her cheek. Detective Gregory is in the locker rooms when he invites Vlad inside, and Vlad then appears in front of him. He tells him that he cannot come inside unless he is invited somewhere, and Gregory gives him Shinya's mobile phone. He tells him to return it to him soon, and Vlad then disappears with the mobile phone. Tun starts worrying for Shinya because she cannot search for her on her own and notices that the window in Vlad's room are all sealed with wooden planks. She then notices a coffin in the middle of the room and just then gets a call from someone. The boys discuss that Shinya's phone may have a clue about her kidnapping, and Wayne hacks into her phone. Vlad tells him to investigate an app called Magic Mirror, and Wayne tells the boys that the Magic Mirror app is used to provide information, talk with the app, and that it can even predict the user's thoughts most of the time by going through their historical conversation and data in the phone. Wayne then discovers that the same app is showing Shinya's location to Tun in her phone, and he shows the boys the same video which is being shared with Tun in her phone to lure her to Shinya's location. On the other hand, Tun follows the direction which the magic mirror gives her to reach Shinya as soon as possible. The boys discuss that the application is acting malicious by showing Tun the way, and that it's possible that a bodiless shadow like Wayne may be manipulating the app to lure Tun in. They realize that they cannot get to Tun before she reaches Shinya, so Vlad comes up with an idea. Tun arrives at Shinya's location and gets a call from Wayne telling her to run away because she is heading to a trap to lure her in. She then hears fighting upstairs and some rubble falls on her. She also spots Shinya upstairs, so she leaves her phone and rushes upstairs. A figure corners Shinya and Tun tackles him. She pushes him towards the stairs and they both fall down. Another figure approaches Shinya while Tun fights against the slasher and tries to run away from him. He attacks her from the side and causes her to fall over a railing. A boy grabs her hand and tells her that it's Wayne. The boy's arm breaks just when he mentions that he is in a mannequin's body, and she falls into heaps of material which break her fall. The slasher jumps after her and she sees her mobile ring at a distance, so she lunges towards it to attend the call. She dodges the slasher's attacks as Vlad tells her on the call to call him out, and she tells him to come help her. Suddenly Vlad appears in front of her and calls her reckless for always getting into trouble. She realizes that he is the vampire Dracula and he pushes the slasher back. He calls him Jack the Ripper and then attacks him again and again. Jack the Ripper gets thrown out in the street and Chris arrives to tell Jack that he was told not to kill the other girl. Jack begins to run away from him and Chris attacks him from behind, which puts him down. He then picks up Shinya, who is lying nearby, and promises to keep her safe. The other boys meet up with Vlad's group and show him a cloak which was left by Jack the Ripper. Wayne tells them that they cannot find Shinya anywhere and they decide to begin their search once again. Later they are all at the cafe when Wayne tells Tun that her great-grandmother Shah Region was an infamous hunter 100 years ago and that she even took down the Dracula who was spreading terror in London. She terrorized all the shadows, however her philosophy was different from the other hunters because she believed in coexisting with the shadows, due to which she formed the organization called the Twilights. The boys tell her that she formed the Café Forbidden to make people accustomed to the shadows, and Wayne then moves to his mannequin body. He tells her that she can also explore Region Study, which is on the upper floor, and Tun struggles to wrap her mind around all the information. Vlad tells her that the shadows didn't have so much support 100 years ago, but now they have ties with the authorities and international bodies. He also promises to save Shinya from the shadow kidnapper, and the boys tell her that there are also shadow Umbra like them who don't like the concept of living in harmony with the humans. Tun realizes that Shinya was kidnapped because of her and her ties with Region, and Luke advises her not to blame herself. He makes pasta for her and Tun learns that Vlad hasn't drunk anyone's blood in 100 years. Vlad argues with Luke that it's not essential for his survival, and they both argue back and forth. On the other hand, Chris also makes pasta for Shinya and she eats it gladly because it tastes good. She wonders whether she will be able to see Tun again, and Chris assures her that Tun will come to see her soon. Tun struggles to sleep and Luke casually scolds her for not getting any sleep for 2 days. He understands that she feels responsible for the kidnapping and promises to rescue her friend, but she declares that it's her right to rescue Shinya as her friend. Wayne looks into the company Snowmary, which has founded the Magic Mirror app, but finds little useful information on it. He tells Vlad that the company was formed 3 years ago and has tons of other apps too, and that it's a rising IT company with no one suspicious behind it. Vlad tells him to keep up his research and then notices Luke rushing through the street via his window. Luke climbs a building and then howls loudly when he reaches the roof. His howling echoes throughout the city and reaches the ears of Chris, who also transforms into a half-wolf. Luke receives a signal from him and they both meet one another. Chris calls him his brother and Luke asks him where the hostage is, so Chris in return asks him where Tun is. Luke tells him that Tun isn't with him and Chris reminds him that the agreement was to exchange hostages. Luke asks him why he hates him and reminds him that their home was destroyed by Umbra, who was their allies. Chris argues with him that the Umbras were ultimately influenced by the humans and then conjures his fur as he lunges at Luke to attack him. Tun comes knocking on Vlad's door and tells him that they cannot find Luke. She tells him that she had baked cookies which she wanted to give to him, and he asks her why she didn't come to him with the cookies first. Wayne consoles him that the cookies were too burnt to be offered to anyone, and Vlad lies to her that Luke must be at the bar hitting with a hot chick. She thinks that Luke may have gone out to look for the kidnapper on his own, and the boys wonder how he found the culprit by himself. She decides to head out to find him, and Vlad admits that Luke may have gone out to find the kidnapper because he didn't want to worry her. She thinks that he is acting stupid and argues with the boys that they shouldn't be too calm about the situation. Vlad comments that she also thinks with her heart and then tells Toryu to gather all his bullets. Chris throws Luke against a wall and calls him a weak, pathetic doggy. Luke taunts him that he finally knows peace now, and Chris argues with him that he does not believe that humans and Umbra can ever live together. Luke invites him to their cafe and Chris gets ready to attack him again when suddenly a bunch of paper slips show up around Luke. They burn and a group of bloodhounds appear around him. Chris realizes that Hasten is pulling the strings and tells him to butt out, so Hasten telepathically tells him that their target hasn't arrived, so he should quickly deal with the pest and move on. The bloodhounds are about to attack him when they receive a round of bullets which takes them down. Tun runs between the wolves and Chris lunges at him, so she bends down and touches her shadow. She extracts a shield from her shadow and uses it to block him out, just like how Vlad had advised her before they left. Vlad teases her that he was thinking the move wouldn't work and apologizes to Luke for following him. He explains that he can easily decipher his signals when he talks to the wolves and that he would have left him alone if Tun hadn't urged them to come save him. Chris taunts them for acting so friendly with one another, and Vlad tells Tun to go find her friend who must be waiting for her. Luke lunges at Chris again and they both fight with one another while Vlad and Toryu take on the Bloodhounds. Tun finds Shinya in one of the cabins in the Ferris wheel, and at the same time Chris gets cornered by Luke. He tells him that he won't kill him because he prefers peace now, and Chris declares that he will never accept the Twilights. He starts climbing the Ferris wheel to get to Shinya, and on Vlad's instructions, Tun tells Shinya to jump down. Vlad tells Toryu to shoot down Chris once he has caught Shinya, and Shinya hesitates to jump, being the wuss that she is. Chris gets to her first before Vlad can reach her and then runs away with her. Hasin watches everything unfold and thinks that he will kill Toryu next to achieve his goal. Afterwards, Luke apologizes to Tun for not rescuing Shinya, and she understands that he was just trying to save Chris. He shares his sob story with her that he spent all his time with Chris at their village and that Chris sent him a signal saying that he will take care of Shinya. She thinks that she can trust Chris since he is Luke's ex-friend after all, and Luke decides to call her by her first name since he considers her a friend now as well. Many years ago, Toryu was firing everywhere around him like a crazy lunatic, and Region dodged all his bullets. She put a charm on his face which calmed him down and told him that it's enough. In the present, Chris puts Shinya on a boat and notices that she isn't trying to flee around him. She doesn't understand why she isn't struggling, and he tells her that they are heading to a secret hideout which Hasin even doesn't know. He doesn't trust him anymore and then starts the boat. They both head towards the hideout while Hasin watches them go and decides to deal with them quickly. Meanwhile, Tun researches on her powers and the history of shadows. She then heads out in the cafe and tells the boys that there is a lot of reading material, including 3 books that she found on Toryu alone. Vlad comments how Region had to deal with a lot of trial and error with Toryu, and Wayne tells her that they don't have a lead on Shinya even though he went through all the security cameras in the town. Luke then feeds her a dessert and Vlad begins arguing with him because he had served her tea first. Wayne comments that they are always losing customers because of their arguments, and Toryu points out that she doesn't have good manners considering she is Rhine's descendant. He explains that Region always dressed elegantly in front of others and had a fine hairstyle and etiquette when she was in company. Luke looks closely at her face and remarks that she definitely resembles Region a lot. Tun then backs away in embarrassment and ends up falling from her stool. Toryu catches her just in time and breaks the dessert glass she was holding in her hand, which causes her clothes to get stained. He apologizes to her for dirtying her clothes, and she notices that he broke the glass with his own head. He tells her not to worry about him since he is just a tool, but she still rushes inside and returns with a bandage. Wayne cleans the floor while she bandages his hand, and he thinks that she should change first. He offers to immediately dry clean her clothes, and she decides to go out with him to help him carry his stuff. After a while, they both head out together, and Wayne points out that they look like they are going on a date, and he offers to let the boys watch their movements since they look bothered by his comment. They all watch Tun through a drone which is following her around, and Toryu tells Tun that he has a talisman on his eyes which was given by Region to control him. He reveals that he cannot see things through the talisman, and she makes an ugly face to check his eyesight, but he catches her doing it. Just then a bunch of birds rush at them and Toryu shoots at all of them. They continue to come at them and he shoots at them one by one as he explains to her that they are all conjured creatures. A huge bird comes from behind him and takes Tun with it. Toryu tries to stop him, but the other birds transform into nails and rain down on him, burying him underneath a bunch of nails. Tun struggles against the bird and Luke jumps out of nowhere at the bird. The bird disappears and she falls down screaming like a banshee. Vlad catches her and Hasin watches everything unfold from a distance. He thinks that the Twilights won't be able to stop Toryu once he reverts to his true form. Luke removes all the nails from Toryu's body and notices that Region's talisman has been removed from his body. Suddenly Tun hears his screaming and they all rush towards the voice only to find Toryu in a pre-rampage mood. Toryu starts shooting at the group and they flee from the scene with Tun in Vlad's arms. He explains to her that Toryu was originally an Umbra weapon designed to rampage behind the enemy lines, and the boys regroup to discuss that Toryu is shooting at everything that is moving. They think that they should give up on it, and Tun suggests using her ring to somehow control Toryu. Vlad doesn't think that she should repeatedly use her powers, but seeing the current situation, he advises her to imagine a talisman in her mind that can calm Toryu down and to conjure it with her powers. Luke and Vlad meanwhile head near Toryu and they send Wayne ahead to assess the area around him. Toryu spots them and starts shooting at them wildly. Tun tells herself that she cannot fail after boasting so much and then pulls out a talisman from the shadows. She then rushes to find Toryu and Wayne helps lead the way. Meanwhile the boys continue trying to fight against Toryu and Tun regroups with them. Luke then rushes out in the open and dodges all of the bullets that Toryu shoots at him. He lunges at him from the side with the talisman and suddenly spots a bomb at a distance. The bomb explodes and Luke manages to get away with minimal damage. He meets with his group and tells them that he put the talisman on Toryu, but they notice that the talisman isn't working as Toryu continues to scream in rage. The boys discuss that they have to resort to the worst-case scenario and Tun suggests making another talisman, but Vlad advises her against it. They decide to kill him because he cannot be controlled anymore, and Vlad comments that their 100 years companionship is coming to an end. Tun thinks about how Toryu isn't a tool and she comes up with another idea to deal with him. She thinks that the previous talisman she made was used to suppress his powers, so she conjures another talisman which serves another purpose. She decides to put the talisman on him by herself and the boys advise her against it since they don't know whether the talisman will work or not. Tun still wants to try saving him and Vlad first lunges at Tun to prevent him from shooting at Tun. She then rushes at him and ends up tripping right in front of him. Toryu points the gun towards her but stops at the last second when he sees her face, which resembles Regent's face. She then rushes at him again and pastes the talisman on his face. A long time ago, when Regent had done the same thing, she had told him that even if Hasten created him as a tool, she doesn't think he is a tool and that he has a heart. Toryu wakes up in the present and tells Tun to punish him however she wants. She tells him the same thing, that he is not a tool and that she made the talisman to give him a heart and not to suppress his powers. Hasten thinks that Tun's powers are definitely awakening and that they will fully awaken in a short time. Later Toryu fusses over Tun's looks and helps her dress up. He keeps following her even when she insists that she isn't a child, and the boys wonder whether Regent always looked neat because of Toryu. Some kids sneak inside an abandoned hospital building after hearing rumors that the building is haunted. They see a moving pumpkin head which scares them and they run away screaming. Chris, who had thrown the lantern at them, comments to Shinya that an abandoned building is the perfect place to hide inside. The pumpkin head starts to move around by itself and Chris points out that it's transforming into an Umbra. He explains that the fears of humans give birth to Umbra and the pumpkin then transforms into a jack-o'-lantern. The shadow becomes scared and hides behind a pillar, so Shinya approaches him and tells him not to be scared. Chris warns her that humans and Umbras do not get along and she wonders about his stupid logic. Tun decides to become the manager of the Café Forbidden and appears in a brand new outfit. The boys throw compliments at her and he notices that Vlad didn't say anything. She teases him that he should lie to compliment her and he declares that she is the most beautiful woman ever. She reveals that she wants to earn her tuition since she went against her parents' wishes by coming to London, and they tell her that she has to do all the odd jobs in the cafe. A hot chick arrives at the cafe and gets seated by Toryu. She tells him that her friend from the London Tower referred her, and Toryu then guides her inside the mirror, which is a place reserved for customers who have requests for the Twilights. Tun approaches her and asks her what her request is, so she tells her that she wants them to find a romantic partner for her. Vlad comes to reveal that the girl named Lydia is actually an Umbra called Sidhi, and Tun agrees to find her a romantic partner. She gives her a list which contains her preferences and promises to come back in 3 days. She then leaves the cafe and Tun reads out the list of qualities which Lydia wants in her partner. The boys tell her that Sidhi Umbra are born from rumors that talented artists die young and that they are fairies who eventually kill their victims by giving them success by draining their life away. Tun decides to reject the request, but Toryu tells her that the cafe cannot refuse a job once they have accepted it. Vlad gets an idea and soon Tun and Luke approach Detective Gregory. Tun tells him that her friend is looking for a guy and he finds the pitch very suspicious since it's coming from the Twilights. Luke tells him that the chick is very hot and Tun asks him to come to their cafe in 2 days, but he pretends that he is very busy and that he will stop by if he has time. After 2 days, Tun thinks that he isn't coming and feels relieved since she doesn't want to trick him. Gregory arrives at their cafe just then and tells the gang that he had a lot of free time. His phone keeps ringing, which indicates that he is plainly lying, and Lydia also arrives after a moment. Toryu seats them together and Gregory notices in a second that she is an Umbra. He declares that he is busy and gets up to leave, so the group tries convincing him to stay. He scolds them for deceiving him and reminds them that Umbra and humans cannot get along in any world. He then leaves the cafe and Wayne decides to help her out somehow. He teleports himself into a phone and starts to look for a guy's profile which exactly matches her criteria. He then finds a musician named Roland Lee who has gotten very famous and who has recently been hospitalized. Vlad chit-chats with Lydia while Luke cooks something for her to cheer her up. She suggests that she can even hit it with any of them since it can never work out between humans and Umbras. Just then the singer Roland barges inside and Lydia asks him what he is doing there. Wayne tells the others behind closed doors that he found Roland after doing online research, so he sent him a picture of Lydia and Roland instantly responded that he wanted to meet her. Lydia tells Roland that they have already broken up and he whines to her that he has been looking for her all this time. She tells him that they cannot be together and storms out of the cafe, so Tun runs after her. The boys sit down Roland and notice his frail health, which makes Vlad comment that he will die soon if he doesn't separate himself from Lydia. Lydia discusses with Tun that he has been with Roland for 5 years and that she broke up with him to save him. Tun realizes that she has to move on and love someone else or else she will keep draining Roland's vitality. Lydia then asks her to take her life since she is very powerful, and Tun thinks that she can maybe find something in Regent's study. She convinces Lydia that they should take a risk to research more, and Lydia promises that she will kill her before Roland's life is endangered. Tun then throws herself in Regent's books to find a cure or a solution for Lydia's troubles. Soon she calls Lydia in the cafe, who notices that Tun looks really down, probably because she has found no solution. Vlad also brings Roland to the cafe and he tells Lydia that he knows about everything including her identity. Lydia calls Vlad a low-grade vermin and runs out after slapping him. Roland runs after her in his frail condition and Tun tries to go after them, but Vlad stops her from going. He argues with her that there are some things important than a person's life and that it's the man's honor to die in his woman's arms. Roland hugs Lydia and tells her that he always thought she didn't like him anymore, but he feels glad that she still feels the same way about him. She tries telling him that she doesn't like him anymore, but he doesn't believe her and hugs her again. He then collapses in her arms and Tun comes running at their side. Lydia reminds her of the promise she made and Tun then conjures an ornament from the shadows which she read about in Regent's books. She wears the ornament in her hand, which starts to shine, and Roland tells Lydia to stop. She tells him that she loves him and then grabs Tun's hand as the shine grows bigger and bigger. Later Tun is whining about the whole situation to Vlad and she wonders whether she made the right choice. They discuss how she used one of Regent's techniques to turn Lydia into an amethyst and that Roland is united with Lydia even if they cannot hear or talk with one another. She wonders whether humans and Umbras can never live together, and Vlad flirts with her that she can try finding out with him. He then walks away and leaves her very embarrassed. Soon a high-profile dude called Van Helsing lands in London and tells his men to find Hasten quickly. He thinks that London has fallen into chaos in his absence and looks at the picture of Regent in his phone. Van watches the video of different paranormal activities taking place in the past few days and notices a video of Jack-o'-lantern. He zooms in on it and finds a reflection of Chris on it, and so he tells his men to look into it. Tun also researches urban legends on her laptop with Wayne's help, and they discuss how people's fear gives birth to Umbras. He discusses his own condition with her, that he doesn't remember anything about his past and he thinks that he can become more useful to the others if he had his memories. She then comes across a picture of Jack-o'-lantern and observes that the creature is wearing Shinya's hat. Shinya offers Lantern some pasta and tells Chris that she wants to eat it with him. He tells her for the 100th time that she shouldn't trust an Umbra, but he finds it really cute. They both sit down to eat lunch together, but he then senses that the building is being surrounded by some guys and prepares himself to fight them. The Twilights also arrive at the building and Luke warns them that Chris will sense their presence if they move any closer. They discuss what they should do and Vlad suggests talking it out with Chris. They notice a helicopter approaching the building and people rushing out of it. Toryu gets ready to shoot it down and they then notice Chris and Shinya getting escorted to the helicopter. Luke rushes towards the building and climbs it while Vlad also turns into a bunch of bats. Luke fails to catch the helicopter as it soars in the air and Vlad then tries to pursue it, but the helicopter releases some kind of cloth which distorts his sense of direction. They recover Vlad and he then transforms back into his usual self. The helicopter transports the both of them to Van's quarters, where Van welcomes Shinya and tells her that she has been brainwashed by the Umbras. Chris gets interrogated and Van tells him that he is being punished because Umbras shouldn't exist in the first place. Chris suggests that he should just kill him and Van promises to punish him just like how he made Shinya suffer. He calls him a demon for offering Shinya to gain another hostage and Chris tells him that it was Hasten's plan originally, so Van calls him a piece of trash who hunts shadows for his own pleasure. He doesn't think Hasten should be a part of their organization and tells Chris to tell him everything about him. Chris asks Van to promise him Shinya's safety and Van promises him that the Midnight Sun will keep her safe. Chris thinks that he can trust him and then starts to share everything with him. The boys return to the cafe and apologize to Tun for being so useless, and she thinks that they need to think about their next move quickly. They discuss who the humans were who took Chris away, and Wayne thinks that it may be the Snow Mary Company who developed the Magic Mirror app. He tells the others that the app has come up various times in his investigation and that the whole company may be involved in the situation, considering they need a lot of financial resources to pull off a hijacking through a helicopter. Suddenly Van Helsing appears on the door and compliments them for finding so much about them. He tells them that he has faced them throughout the history, and Vlad recognizes that he is the 13th Van Helsing from the Midnight Sun organization. Tun asks them what he is talking about, so Van tells her about the history of humans and Umbra. The Umbras were officially recognized in the First World War, and that Umbras usually cause the war to sow confusion and gain more powers. The world started to recognize that they were a great threat to the world, due to which an organization was formed on an international level to take care of them, which was called the Midnight Sun. However, when the war ended, the world started desiring harmony and coexistence with the Umbra, due to which the Midnight Sun was pushed to a side and soon its operations dimmed down. Van reveals that his organization went underground, and some time ago, he formed the Snowmary Company by himself and used it to fund Midnight Sun. He then hunted Umbra through Europe and got the title of Umbra Hunter, which makes Tun think that he is like Regin since she was also a hunter. Vlad argues with her that Regin and Van are both polar opposites, since Van wants to kill Umbra and Regin believed in coexistence, and Van then apologizes to her on his men's behalf. He tells her that he will return Shinya and tells her to come alone at the place, which he will share with her, and also asks her to stop associating with the Umbra. When he is gone, Luke follows after him, and Tun wonders whether she can trust Van Helsing. Vlad explains to her that Van Helsing hates Umbra, but he is loyal towards all humans and won't lie to her, but she wonders whether she can really leave Cafe Forbidden Boys for Shinya. Toryu calls Vlad outside and informs him that Luke may have gone after Van because he is missing. They discuss that Luke must have gone to find Chris and that he can never deal with the organization on his own. They split up and start looking for him through London. Van arrives at an abandoned building and tells Luke to come out since he knew he was being followed from the very start. He asks him whether anyone else is with him, and Luke tells him that it's his business alone. Van calls the Umbra naive and emotional and tells him that they can fight all they want. A helicopter heads towards their location as Luke lunges at Van, and Van in return shoots at him with silver bullets. Luke dodges all of his bullets and then grabs his neck. He reminds him that he doesn't have supernatural strength, and Van comments that he cannot kill him because he still needs his brother's location from him. The airplane drops many boxes which land and release wolfsbane. The poison from the wolfsbane hits Luke and he collapses on the ground. Tun gets an invitation from Van Helsing telling her to come to a certain location. At the same time, Toryu is looking for Luke when a flying object lands in front of him and shows him a picture of Luke on the ground. Van then tells him to come alone to his location, otherwise he will kill Luke. Toryu heads to his location by himself and starts fighting with him. Van dodges all his bullets by moving cleverly around the warehouse structure and comments that an Umbra like him has no weaknesses or heart. Toryu tells him that he has a heart, and Van then jumps in front of him. He throws a small object at him which sticks to the tank behind Toryu and suddenly releases the nitrogen gas which was inside the tank. The gas envelopes Toryu and freezes him on the spot. Tun thinks that she can never associate with the Umbra again if she wants to get Shinya back, but she takes a risk and heads out towards Van's location. Vlad also gets a message from Van telling him to come to another location. Tun arrives at the designated location and gets to meet with Shinya, who hugs her. Vlad meets up with Van, who tells him that his friends are nearby and that they will all be killed together. He then gets an airdrop which turns out to be a weapon with a cross in front which he intends to use to take down Vlad. Shinya tells Tun that she has been treated courteously by the Midnight Sun organization and that Chris also did his best to protect her. Tun assures her that they will return to the Cafe Forbidden and tells the guards to take them to Chris. The guard contacts the operation room and then tells Tun that she cannot leave right now because they still need to resolve a problem. He explains that they have to exterminate all the Umbras who have been bothering them, so Tun tells them that they can never be exterminated. She tries to leave on her own but finds the gate locked, and Wayne helps her out by unlocking the door. The guards run after the both of them, and Tun tells Wayne to hack into their computer servers to find Chris' location. Van's backup guy watches everything via the cameras and contacts Van to get more instructions. Van tells him to use his own head and yells at him, so the backup guy shuts everything off and tells him to handle on his own. Van thinks that he doesn't need his help anyway and then looks at Vlad, who has been stabbed to the wall in front of him. Vlad asks him whether his comrades are abandoning him and notices that Van really looks anxious. He tells him that he is only a puppet and that the person who was helping from the shadows was the actual mastermind, but looks like he has abandoned him now. Vlad takes out the weapon from his chest and throws it away while Van tries to get in contact with his backup but gets no response in return. Luke takes the silver bullet out of his body while Toryu also recovers from his condition, and they both discuss that Van's men weren't well trained. They decide to let Vlad handle Van, and on the other end, Wayne shows the girls the camera feed which shows Chris restrained at the basement. The girls are on the 85th floor and he tries to find a route for them since there must be guards everywhere. Tun gets a call from Luke telling her that they are near the building and Wayne sends him directions to reach them. Wayne then tries to jump back to Tun's phone so that they can all escape, but he is unable to jump. The backup guy uses his IT skills to prevent him from jumping and then deletes the processor in which he was on. The girls assure themselves that he will be fine since Umbra do not die and then hear the guards trying to burst inside their room. Tun sees the map which Wayne had drawn for her and then rushes out with the others from the other door. The guards rush after her and she conjures a wall with her ring to block them. She tells Shinya that she has gained a little supernatural power since the last time they met, and Shinya assures her that she is still the same old Tun from before. Luke manages to get to Chris while Toryu barges through the front door and takes on all the guards by himself. Luke taunts Chris for giving up all hope and tells him that there must be people who will be upset over his condition. Chris recalls Shinya and thinks that she is better off without him, not realizing that Luke was only talking about himself. Luke then tells her to ask Shinya about her feelings himself, and Chris asks him to break his cuffs. Vlad uses all of his Bruce Lee techniques to take Van down and compliments him for trying so hard despite the betrayal from his boss. He walks away from him even though Van tells him to kill him, and he then tells Van to come fight him again. The girls continue their run and Tun uses her powers again to block the guards from following her. The powers drain her energy and the guards discuss that they should shoot at her since she is not a human and is an Umbra. The backup also agrees with their logic and starts using the building technology to shoot at her. Tun and Shinya hide behind a wall, and just then all the tech around them starts to burn down. The computers in the backup guy's room start to explode as well, and Wayne appears from the screen. He declares that he erased Wayne's memories and went into hiding and that humanity can be destroyed once he appears. He destroys all the computers in the building and all the mirrors. Vlad observes everything from a distance and rushes towards the building to save Tun. The building starts to cave down on its own and Luke and Chris fight with one another since that's the only thing they know how to do. The ground floor starts to shake and rubble falls on the guards, but Toryu saves them and tells them to run away. Tun wakes up after fainting and discovers that Wayne has returned to her phone. She whines to him about losing him, and he then gets her into contact with Luke. She tells him that they are heading downstairs, and Chris then tells Shinya that he cannot wait to meet her. Hae-sin appears from all the rubble and tells Tun that he was the mastermind behind Shinya's kidnapping. Chris sees him via the call and warns the girls that they cannot defeat him. He then jumps out of the room and starts to climb the building to get to them while Luke follows after him. Tun then conjures her chains and uses them on Hae-sin to restrain him. He uses a talisman to conjure Jack the Ripper and hands him a weapon which he uses to lunge at Shinya. He stabs her and she falls down the building, so Chris jumps after her and catches her in midair. Tun loses her senses and her hair turns red as she swings Hae-sin around with her chains. She smashes him into the floor, which breaks due to her powers, and Hae-sin declares that she is definitely Regent's relative. Tun falls down into the rubble and Vlad appears to catch her. Chris and Shinya land on the ground and she discovers that Jack-o'-lantern had come in the way and had gotten stabbed instead. She hugs him tightly as he disappears, and its shadow heals her wounds as it disappears. Tun wakes up surrounded by all the handsome boys, and they tell her that she destroyed everything with her powers, but she cannot seem to recall it. She gets up and feels pain in her body, so the boys make her rest till she has fully healed. Luke then barges inside the room and assures her that Shinya is alright, but they don't know where she is. She listens to everything and then asks them who Shinya is. Later the boys discuss that Tun is losing memories, and Vlad thinks that the use of too much supernatural powers is having an effect on her body. They discuss that her body is trying to flee from reality by forgetting someone important to her. Tun thinks that she needs to get up quickly, but she fails to recall if there was anything that she had to do. She keeps trying to recall what happened but doesn't remember anything urgent. Later the guys keep thinking what they should do about Tun, and eventually they become too worried, so they hold a meeting. Luke proposes to them that Tun probably lost her memories because of the shock she received from Shinya's death, and that they need to explain to her in detail about what happened so that she can recall Shinya. He suggests showing her photos to give her a jolt, and the others think that it's a good idea, but Vlad tells them that they can also let her remain in her current condition. He thinks that they need to protect her by not tampering her memories anymore, but Luke doesn't agree with his logic. Vlad reminds them that Tun overexerted herself in order to save her friend, and that she will go out to save her friend once again if her memories return to her. He thinks that she will put herself in more danger, but Luke still doesn't agree with him. Later Tun feels bored resting all the time while Luke cooks food for the cafe while Vlad makes tea. The guys hold another meeting to discuss her situation, and Luke tells them that he has another idea. He decides to take a break without giving them more information, and Vlad reminds him that he is the only cook in the cafe. He smoothly talks with him that the customers cannot survive without his cooking, and then announces that he is taking a break. The guys remind him that he has to make tea for the customers, and he tells them to make the customers wait for his precious tea. He then heads inside and meets up with Tun, who was getting pretty bored. He notices that her hair isn't returning to her normal hair color, which makes her realize that hair has a different color now. He reveals that he wanted to talk to her before Luke put ideas into her head and tells her not to do something reckless without involving them. She doesn't understand what he is saying and he tells her to just remember her words. After he leaves, Luke pays her a visit and brings a dessert for her which she starts eating. She tells him about Vlad's visit and he then asks whether he can conduct a survey with her. He shares an imaginative story with her in which a girl has lost her treasure and will face repercussions if gets her treasure back. He then asks her whether the girl should get the treasure back and she doesn't give him any proper answer. She starts thinking that maybe he is asking for relationship advice and asks him whether he likes the girl, so he declares that he likes her a lot. After he is gone, Toryu pays her a visit and tells her that he only has bookish knowledge about such situations. He gives her a gift which turns out to be a sleeping clothing set and asks whether anything happened before his visit. She assures him that nothing extraordinary happened and he then offers to brush her hair. She insists on combing it herself and he reveals that even Regin praised his brushing. Tun gives in and he then starts to brush her hair. He recalls Regin once again and tells Tun that he respects and loves her a lot. Later at night, Tun thinks to herself that everyone is being really nice to her and hopes that things stay like this forever. She still thinks that something is missing and wonders if it's alright to let things remain as it is. Chris and Shinya run away from their pursuers and run into a taxi. Chris orders the taxi man to quickly leave and to go wherever he wants, which makes the taxi man comment that he seems to be in a movie. Chris tells him to go to the end of the word and the driver then starts the ride. His phone starts to ring and he apologizes to them since he had put it on mute. Chris notices the notifications on his phone and the camera on his car, so he suddenly tells him to stop and jumps out of the car with Shinya after giving him the fare. They start running again as he explains to her that they are being spied on by the Snowmary app and that everyone is watching them every time wherever they go. Van's backup guy watches everything on the cameras and wonders how Chris keeps escaping every single time. Hasten comes to meet him and he shows him a video in which Van is requesting help for assistance. He then declares that Vlad's leftover blood is burning him and then collapses on the ground. Hasten wonders why he is showing him this video and the guy points him to the other video which he was originally intending to show to him. The video is of Shinya whose wounds were getting healed when Jack-o'-lantern was dying in her arms, and the guy asks Hasten who will be stronger out of Tun and Shinya. Later at night, Chris and Shinya are hiding in the forest when Chris smells in the air that their pursuers are near the hotel. He thinks that there is no place left for them to go and notices Shinya smiling, so he asks her why she is happening. She reveals that the pumpkin is wishing her good luck and then tells him that they can still go to Tun and her friends. He reminds her that they have caused too much trouble to them already and she assures him that they must have forgiven him already. She reveals that Tun would always come save her whenever she was in trouble and that she will save her again. Soon Tun's memories come back to her as she regains her strength and she thinks that she cannot be resting anymore. Her hair color turns back to normal and she then rushes downstairs to meet all the guys. They all tell her to rest some more and she reminds them that she has to go look for Shinya. A bunch of monsters appear around a museum guard and scare him off, so he runs away. Hasten appears in the middle of them and the backup communicates to him through a drone. They discuss how Hasten has supplied him with new weapons and the guy reminds Hasten that they are playing a game to determine who will level up faster between Tun and Shinya. The guy tells him to focus on Tun and that he will focus on Shinya, and Hasten makes the monsters disappear as he promises to train Tun's powers more. The guy reveals that he plans to capture Shinya to nurture her powers by using scientific powers and that he plans to stop her from meeting the Twilights as well. Detective Gregory arrives at the Café Forbidden and notices a number of sus-looking men outside. He enters inside and sees the nervous-looking faces, so Luke tells him that Chris has called him asking for help and told them that they are heading towards the cafe. Soon after his call, the cafe was surrounded by the sus men and Luke told him through wolf howling to go to another place. The boys didn't realize that all of their movements were being intercepted and Luke suggests chasing the men off, but Wayne advises him against it. Gregory then gets a call telling him that a bunch of monsters have been spotted at the museum and Vlad also decides to close the shop early. They all head to the museum where Vlad uses his powers to wipe the memories of the guards and Luke shares with Tun that he removes the memories of people related to the Umbra whenever Gregory asks him to. Wayne explains that they have to protect their image in the eyes of normal people and Gregory wonders where the monsters have disappeared to. Just then one of the monsters, who is an armored man, appears and attacks them, so the group attacks it and he fights with them. Tun conjures her chains and uses it to restrain the armor. Her hair starts turning red and Toryu then shoots at the monster, which puts him down. Tun then collapses on her knees in exhaustion and the guys run to her side in panic. Later backup discusses with Hasten through audio call that Tun got a bit stronger in the latest fight and Hasten regrets not being able to watch it, so he offers to send him the recorded video of her fight. Van Helsing is in the hospital sleeping when a sus-looking dude approaches him and is about to shoot him. Van grabs the gun from him and then throws it away as he rants that he cannot ever sleep peacefully knowing so many Umbras are after him. He wonders why they are coming after him since he has never harmed humans, and another guy appears. He starts shooting at him and Van uses a stool to block their bullets. He asks them whether Hasten is behind them, and just then backup guy's picture appears on the TV screen beside him. He reminds Van that he never wanted to live a life of disgrace and should just die at this point, so Van taunts him for turning against him. He admits that humans are ambitious creatures and that he can never blame them, so rather than fighting them, he jumps out of the hospital window and runs away. Hasten watches his video as well and receives the news that Shinya has given up on meeting with the Twilights and has fled into another neighborhood where the backup will soon find her. Wayne tells the group that he has found a clue and explains that the Midnight Sun has sent a bunch of guys to the area Camden where Shinya is probably at. Tun thinks that she should find Shinya first, and the guys convince her that they cannot find her by using the same strategy as the Midnight Sun. Luke gets an idea and he runs out of the cafe. At the same time, Chris is wandering in Camden when he hears howling from Luke and tells Shinya that he and Luke had the same idea. Luke comes inside and shares with the group that he and Chris used to fight at the Camden Canal back in the day a lot. He has also given the signal to Chris to come there to meet with them, and Wayne then takes Tun's phone from her since it can be used to track her. The backup guy receives intel that all the Twilight people have left the cafe and then notices that Tun's phone is showing that she is heading towards Camden. He becomes really happy to realize that he can just follow her to reach Shinya. Chris and Shinya wait for time to pass by at a food market, and Chris explains to her that they should blend in the crowd to avoid cameras. She admits that she is having a lot of fun since she is sightseeing in London and thanks him for bringing her to such a wonderful place. He reveals that the area is pretty familiar to him and then shoots his shot as he asks her whether she would like to come back with him to the same area once everything is over. She accepts his request and declares that it's a promise. Luke and Toryu arrive at a street and backup watches them from his camera. He thinks that they have reached their desired location and starts to send out reinforcements to take them down, but suddenly he realizes that Tun isn't with them. Tun and Vlad run to a separate location and Vlad compliments Wayne on hacking into Midnight Sun's system, which is allowing them to dodge all the cameras. Backup realizes that he was sorely deceived, and just then his surveillance system shuts down. Wayne informs Luke and Toryu that the surveillance system is down and they head towards their main location. Backup notices that his code has a lot of junk in it and realizes that Wayne is messing with his system somehow. Tun and Luke arrive at their location and come across a lion-like monster, so Luke tells her to go hide somewhere while he will lure the monster towards the river. She doesn't think that they have enough time and approaches the monsters to take care of it. Backup gets in contact with Hasten and tells him to go after Tun himself since he wants to focus on Shinya now. Hasten informs him that he has already found Tun, and at the same time, Tun fights with the monster by herself. Hasten comments that his monsters are not slowing her down, and Backup thinks that he cannot let her and Shinya meet. Chris and Shinya arrive at the tunnel and they hear a weird voice, so Chris decides to check it out. He tells Shinya to wait for Luke's friends to come get her, and she realizes that he is not coming with her as he explains that he has some things left to do. Tun has taken the monster down when they get a call from Luke telling them that an ugly-looking monster has appeared. Backup compliments Hasten for blocking Luke and Toryu with his biggest monster ever, and at the same time, the guys begin fighting against the fire-breathing monster. Luke tells Vlad that they cannot take on the monster by themselves and asks him for help, so Vlad decides to help them on his own. Kun decides to go with her even though she would be abandoning Shinya, and meanwhile, Chris and Shinya get surrounded by a bunch of guys. Tun tells Vlad that Shinya would want her to go save her friends first, and they both head towards the monster. Chris and Shinya get cornered and the attackers throw wolfsbane at Chris, which is poison to him. He declares that he will protect Shinya, but she stops him from acting more cringe and thanks him for accompanying her. Tun helps the Twilights take the monster down by conjuring a water-based weapon. Chris notices the attackers mishandling Shinya, so he lunges at them and they shoot bullets at him till he falls down in the canal. They then knock out Shinya and report to someone that the target has been acquired. Shinya wakes up and finds Chris standing in front of her telling her not to worry. Outside her room, Backup shares with Hasten that he is using a new version of Magic Mirror which is feeding false data into her and allowing her to see a false reality. Hasten wonders if Shinya will be easily manipulated, and on the other side Shinya hugs Chris in tears. The Twilights stay at a house in the countryside and Wayne reveals that he cannot hack into the organization's system to track their movements because of the slow internet. The others know by this time that their movements will also be traced if they trace the enemy's movements, and they discuss that they have to stay at the house to prevent Tun from using any more of her powers. Wayne then checks all the radio channels to reveal that none of the channels are mentioning the last night's attacks, and Vlad comments that someone other than Gregory is pulling strings from the shadows to hide everything. He feels relaxed that Luke is patrolling around the area to guard them, and they discuss that Shinya must be alive since the enemies keep coming after her for some other purpose. Wayne wonders whether they have kidnapped Shinya to lure Tun, and Vlad argues with him that they can just release an Umbra in the city to unleash Tun's powers. He thinks that they are after Shinya for another reason and that Tun shouldn't get more involved in the matter. Chris tells Shinya in the virtual reality that Jack-o'-lantern died protecting him from the humans, and she cradles Jack's body. In reality, she is near the body of the monster who was taken down the last night, and Backup tells Hasten that he had originally created the Magic Mirror app as a counseling app, but its real purpose was to control people. Shinya releases Shadow in the air, which heals the monster, and it disappears due to her powers. Vlad checks up on Tun, who wants to go out and look for Shinya, and she thinks that her powers have returned to full capacity. He grabs her hand and tells her to take off her ring, which will help her sleep and return her hair color back to normal. He promises to save Shinya, and she tells him that she cannot wait any longer. He tells her that Region was just like her since she never stopped fighting the Umbrella, and that eventually she disappeared from the world. She asks him how he felt about her, and he lies to her that he doesn't remember it since it was 100 years ago, but he feels regret at not being able to keep her in this world. She thinks that Region didn't want to stop fighting and tells him to stop comparing her with Region to erase his regret. He reveals that he still wants to stop her and that he hasn't drunk any human blood in 100 years due to a promise he made to Region. She asks him whether he will use his powers to change her memories, and he then bends down to bite her neck. She tells him that he must be weaker than Region due to drinking no blood, and that she can beat him in his current state because she has Region's powers now. He draws back in hurt, and she then runs out after telling him to leave her alone. She runs into the forest while the Twilights scold Vlad for treating her so roughly and losing control. Luke approaches her and gives her a hat to hide her red hair. He apologizes on Vlad's behalf and reveals that he was able to truce Chris sent to downstream, but he cannot trace him any further. She assures him that he must be alive and that they should go search for him, so Luke tells her that Chris now has a goal to rescue Shinya, due to which he won't back down now. He declares that he is going to go rescue Shinya in order to fulfill his brother's wish and asks her to let them handle the situation. She thinks that he is acting possessive just like Vlad, and he explains to her that he wants her to live a normal human life with Shinya after everything is over and remain in a good relationship with Umbra. They both return to the house and find that Vlad has run off after receiving so much scolding. She thinks that she should apologize to him, and Toryu tells her that there's no need to apologize to him or criticize him anymore. He explains that he and Vlad lost someone dear to them 100 years ago and will lose someone again this time if she doesn't stop. She asks him whether he also doesn't want her to go and fight, so he tells her that she should do whatever she wants to do, but he will remove his talisman if she leaves. She starts crying as she admits that she wants to remain human and return to the cafe like normal, but she doesn't know what to do. Vlad returns with a bunch of groceries just then and announces that they are going to have an afternoon tea party. A bunch of monsters appear before Shinya, and Chris tells her that the monsters were only created due to the humans' imaginations, but they don't want to be born. He convinces her to grant them peace, and she uses her powers, due to which two large hands come out from underneath her. They release a shadow which sucks all the monsters inside and kills them all. Backup Guy celebrates his success since he has never seen a shaman who can merge Umbra with their own body. Hasten explains to him that such kind of shadows was usually found a century ago, and they both discuss how Backup is using Shinya to get more fame and wealth. Hasten lectures him about his image, but Backup declares that he wants to carve his ugly-looking existence into the world. Hasten admits that he has spent 100 years building his wealth and that he wants to live an eternal life for himself. They both realize that Backup wants to get rid of all Umbra from the world by using Shinya, while Hasten wants to achieve all the powers of the Umbra, due to which their goals are in conflict with one another. They decide to have one final battle of Tun versus Shinya, in which the winner will get everything that he wants. The Twilights set a fancy table full of tea and dessert, and once everyone has been seated, Vlad declares that they will have the best of time. He smoothly talks with Tun that he has made the best tea for her, and the group then enjoys their tea party. They joke around, fool around, and have the best time ever. Later at night, they spot that someone has written on their house to come meet them at London Tower. They all head towards the location, and Vlad calls Wayne to ask him that he should save Tun even if they all get wiped out. He calls him the Lord of Gluttony and hangs up, while another personality wakes up from inside Wayne. Backup and Hasten station themselves at the Tower of London, and Hasten uses his spells to conjure a small army of Umbra around the tower. He explains that it might be the most cursed place in London and then heads off to greet the upcoming guests. Backup continues to mold the reality for Shinya, and she jumps between the army to prepare for the battle. The Twilights head to the location in the boat and Vlad explains to them that he wants to make a dramatic entry. The others make fun of his dramatics and Tun thanks them for trying to cheer her up. They reach the gate which leads to the London Tower and come across Hasin, who tells them that he had only invited Tun. He conjures a bunch of Umbra again who start shooting at them and Vlad jumps at them to block all their attacks. Toryu also begins attacking them with his machine gun and Luke jumps in the midst of them to take them on. Hasin reveals that there are countless miserable souls who can be conjured as Umbra to take them on, and Toryu then releases a grenade on them which takes a lot of them down. Tun is about to use her powers, but Vlad stops and reminds her that she promised to only use her powers when they would find Shinya. She thinks that they cannot get through at this rate and Toryu tells her not to underestimate them. He shares with the others that he is going to blow the door open and that they should all sneak in after him. Tun asks him not to sacrifice himself for her sake, and he reminds her that he has a talented mage who can heal him when he returns. She realizes that he is talking about her and he tells Vlad to take care of everything. He then rushes towards the gate and Vlad rushes after him with Tun in his arms. He bursts through the first gate and comes face to face with an army of monsters, so he throws grenades at them which cause a huge explosion. Backup notices that the first gate has been breached and starts pathetically ranting about destiny. Toryu gets restrained in all the rubble while the other Twilights slip inside the gate, and he then thinks of ripping off his talisman to show off his skills. The others rush forward and cross another gate. They lock it to prevent the Umbra from coming after them, and Vlad promises Tun that he will save Toryu and Shinya. They head forward and Hasin calls backup to inform him that the Twilights have been successfully lured inside according to their plan. He tells him to proceed with the next step of the plan, and backup warns him that he cannot alter the senses of the Twilight like he is doing with Shinya. Hasin then conjures an Umbra and backup uses his magic mirror powers to change its look to make it look like Chris. On the other side, Luke hears Chris's voice and he parts with the group to rush inside one of the rooms. He comes across Chris, who seems injured, and holds him close. Chris thanks him for choosing him over Tun, and Luke realizes that something is wrong. Hasin appears behind him and stabs him just when Luke turns around to attack him. Luke collapses on the ground while Hasin observes that the new model needs more improvement, however it can be used to buy time at this stage. Vlad and Tun head forward without Luke and they come across Region, which shocks them. She tells Vlad not to come forward and that only her descendants can move forward. She also expresses her desire not to fight him, and Vlad tells Tun that 100 years ago Region turned into an Umbra after using her powers too much. She realizes that it's an Umbra standing in front of her, and Region then tells Vlad to hand over Tun to her and that she will return to him in exchange. She starts ranting to him that he never believed in the coexistence of humans and Umbra and that he has been waiting for her all this time and finally they can be together. Vlad stops Tun from speaking and tells Region that he has been waiting for her for 100 years like a loser, but he has found Tun now who needs his guidance. He decides to stay with her instead, and she declares to use her powers to stop him. Vlad then starts telling Tun what to do, and Region extracts her chains to fight them. Vlad calls Region an imposter and rants endlessly that Region would never talk to her great-grandmother with such contempt. She argues with him that people change after a while, but he doesn't believe her, and Tun pretends to argue with him that she is leaving him because she cannot bear him any longer. She jumps down from the bridge just when he lunges at Region and takes her down. She transforms back into an Umbra mold, and he throws the mobile with Wayne in it at one of the Umbra to help Tun out. Wayne transfers himself into the Umbra and then rushes forward with Tun to find Shinya. Vlad then comes face to face with Hasin and tells him that he smelled his blood on the Umbra, which instantly made him realize that Region was fake. He asks him where Luke is, and Hasin tells him to go find him if he can. Hasin then suggests that they should go and watch the fight between Tun and Shinya, but Vlad believes in Tun and lunges at Hasin to fight him. Tun and Wayne rush through the army of Umbra and Wayne takes them down one by one to protect her. She then comes across Shinya and her new look upsets her a lot. She approaches her slowly and asks her to go back home with her. Backup alters Shinya's senses to make her think that she is facing an Umbra, and she then attacks Tun. Wayne jumps in between and gets hurled to a side. Shinya then releases her shadow and Tun prepares to use her ring, but just then someone jumps between them from the above. It turns out to be Van Helsing, who yells at Shinya to come back to her senses and also calls out Backup to release the girl. Backup starts panicking in the background and orders Shinya to kill Van Helsing as well. Van asks Tun to tell Vlad that he will definitely defeat him, and Shinya attacks him, so he runs to the side to avoid all her attacks. He rushes along the building and manages to climb to the building roof where Backup is operating from. He faces him finally, and Shinya appears behind him. She attacks him with shadow tentacles, and Van blocks her attacks by using his body to prevent her from injuring Backup. He tells Backup that he cannot kill humans, but Backup ends up getting hurt too and starts whining about being in pain. Van tells him to release Shinya, but he refuses to listen to him and tells Shinya to save the world. He faints on the spot and Shinya then conjures all the Umbra that she had previously taken down. Tun watches everything from the bottom and then uses her ring to unleash her powers. Hasten observes that the martial art Vlad is using was taught to him by Regin, and he shares with him that he is the master of his master. Vlad asks him about his purpose of getting Tun, and he reveals that he wants to become immortal just like him. He reveals that he is actually Regin's brother and that he can extend his life by consuming the livers of his family members who have good vitality, due to which he has killed a lot of his relatives. He reveals that he plans to consume Tun to make himself immortal and then uses his spells to conjure a huge ugly-looking Umbra called Ken. Shinya starts to lose control of her powers and begins screaming. She sees Tun at a distance and recalls Chris telling her that she needs to save people from Umbras. She keeps recalling his words, which unravel her more, and then attacks Tun with a bunch of shadow tentacles. Tun runs away to dodge all her attacks and tells her to remember her. Wayne sneaks into Van's buildings in the meanwhile and finds him slumped on Backup. Van asks him whether he can fulfill his purpose and points towards Backup's terminal at a distance. He then passes out and Wayne rushes to get the terminal to hack into it. On the other side, Vlad dodges Ken's attacks and Hasten reveals that he wants to capture him alive in order to dissect him to discover his secret to immortality. Vlad calls him a pervert and attacks Ken again, but Hasten uses his powers to heal his arm immediately. Ken attacks him again, but this time he gets shot from a distance and Toryu arrives at the scene. He brings Chris with him, who jumps on Ken's head and attacks him from there. Luke also appears behind Hasten and declares that he has gloriously returned. Hasten runs behind Ken and uses a spell to inject more powers into him while the boys tell Vlad that Chris helped them. Some time ago, when Toryu was ripping up his talisman, Chris pushed him inside the gate and prevented him from removing his talisman. He then found Luke and kicked his face till he woke up as well. Chris reveals that he woke up at the side of the canal and doesn't know why he was even left alive. Luke teases him that he needs to survive for the sake of his love, and the boys tell Vlad to help out Tun. They take on Hasten and Ken by themselves while Vlad rushes away to help out the maiden in distress. Shinya keeps attacking Tun with her shadow tentacles and Tun slices them away with her blades. She lunges at Shinya and blocks all her attacks with her weapons till she is at her neck. Shinya still attacks her again and she jumps back as she realizes that her powers are increasing beyond her control. The attacks continue and she keeps dodging them while Wayne successfully hacks into the backup system. He tells Tun that it will take 30 minutes to shut down the system, and she confesses to him that she cannot hold on for so long. She conjures a wall of talisman to block Shinyo's attacks, and Wayne tells her that she can try destroying the chip on Shinyo's neck, which is being used to control her. She thinks that she cannot her neck, and Vlad appears in front of her just when Shinya manages to get through her shield. Vlad tells her to rest for 2 whole minutes to regain her strength, and she tells him not to fight Shinya, who is being controlled. He assures her that he won't fight her and then approaches her slowly. Shinya attacks him with her shadow tentacles and he lets them hit his body. The tentacles restrain him and then bring him towards her body, after which she absorbs him fully. The Wolf brothers attack Ken in coordination, and after they are done, Toryu unleashes a torrent of bullets at him. Just like before, Ken's wounds heal quickly and the brothers attack him again. Hasten praises them for their skills but thinks that they can never defeat Ken, and he notices to his shock that he is getting old quickly. Shinya approaches Tun and is about to attack her, but suddenly she starts to get sliced from within. She collapses on the ground and Vlad emerges from her shadow. He collapses on the ground and reveals the chip which he has extracted from inside Shinya, which has now freed her. Tun puts his head on her lap and comments that she always believed him while he tells her that he cannot help her anymore. Shinyo's shadows release all the Umbra which she has absorbed before, and one of them jumps on the roof. It releases fire on everyone laying there, including Backup's laptop, and Tun assures Vlad that she can handle them. She gets up and prepares to fight the army of Umbra on her own. The other Twilights notice that Ken's regenerative powers are slowing down and Toryu shoots at him wildly while the wolves tear him from the middle. Ken collapses on the ground in 2 halves and they discover that Hasten is gone. Tun hits the ground with her staff, which releases a lot of power and eradicates all the Umbra who were coming to attack her. Hasten flees from the scene and plans for the future that he will go underground for 10 years to regain his strength, since he has lost 50 years in the battle. A small child approaches him, which shocks him a lot and then slashes at his neck. On the other side, Lord of Gluttony Wayne appears in his other form and sees 2 snacks in front of him in the form of Shinya and Tun. Vlad asks him to consume both their powers and spare their flesh, but Wayne whines about not eating any leftovers. He then tells him in seriousness that he can only consume one girl's powers, and Vlad asks him to consume Shinyo's powers since she didn't want them in the first place. Wayne approaches her and transfers himself inside her while Vlad catches Tun and tells her to come back home with him. She expresses worry over losing control of her powers and he assures her that he won't let her lose control. She then tells him that he can turn her into him if she loses powers and passes out while Vlad thinks about drinking her blood. Soon some time passes by and one evening, the boys are in the cafe as usual. They roast Vlad for not being motivated to work and Detective Gregory enters their cafe. They all lose even more motivation at seeing him and he steps aside to reveal Shinya who has come to see them. The boys greet her cheerfully and complain to her because she doesn't visit them daily. They start chit-chatting with her about her ongoing classes and Gregory notices that Vlad looks really down. He teases him that he looks like a constipated potato in Tun's absence and just then Tun barges inside the coffee. Vlad starts scolding her for coming late even though she is the cafe manager and she argues with him to her heart's content. Shinya shows them a picture of Chris in Rome and reveals that he has been traveling internationally to get to know Umbra all around the world. Afterwards, Tun is rushing to her class when she comes across a kid who is lost in London. She gives him the card of Cafe Forbidden and tells her to seek them out to get help. She then rushes to the bus while the kid watches her relative go. That's all for today, my fellow men of culture. If you liked the video, make sure to subscribe the channel for more anime recaps.